to welcome you to this afternoon's webinar, which is going to be about new funding opportunities for skills training and discussing the Kickstart scheme. Really delighted to welcome both Victoria and Andrew Mills, who are talking to us from the Education and Skills Funding Agency, and they're going to give us a rundown on this new scheme. Just do a bit of housekeeping, just to run you through. Today I'm Sarah Thomas. Actually, I work for York and North Yorkshire Growth Hub, part of the Local Enterprise Partnership, and today's webinar is presented in association with Make It York and North Yorkshire County Council. And the webinar today is going to be about 45 minutes long. So Victoria and Andrew are going to do a presentation on the Kickstart scheme, and then we're going to have 10 to 15 minutes Q&A at the end. So if you've got any questions for Victoria and Andrew, if you pop them in the Q&A box, and then I'll pose the questions to them at the end. Okay, and then the chat box will be used for us to kind of give you any information, links to websites, email addresses and things like that. Just to let you know, it's going to be recorded today, so you'll all be remain anonymous as attendees. If you want to put your hand up or anything like that, there's the button in the Q&A or the chat if you want to raise any questions. So without anything else, I'd just like to hand over to Victoria, who's going to take us through our webinar today. To you, Victoria.
Thank you very much, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Right, I'm going to be sharing a presentation with you, which you will receive a copy on, so don't feel like you need to write copious notes. There's a lot of information to share with you, and if you feel like you need a follow-up conversation, I have included all of the contact details you would need to ring our National Contact Centre, and also my contact details on the end of the slide. So there is an opportunity for further conversation if we're not able to cover your question today, or you just want to have more information or more in-depth conversation around everything that I'm going to cover. The aim of the presentation is to bring together everything that's happening in the skills space. However, it's very much an evolving landscape at the moment. Everything's changing and developing at a very fast pace. So we are hoping to continue the conversation and ensure that you have all the information you need as employers to create those job opportunities to support economic recovery following what's been a really difficult period. So employers engaging in the skills agenda and offering opportunities for young people to join their organisation is key to the programmes that I'm going to be covering with you, especially apprenticeships, traineeships, Kickstart and T-levels. Just to take you on a little bit of a journey that we've been going through since March, we have been publishing guidance in response to the CV-19 outbreak. And our aim in doing this was to provide flexibility and guidance to enable apprenticeship training to continue to take place along with endpoint assessment. So version 6 was published mid-July, and it confirmed arrangements for the reopening of education settings, some information around universal credits and level 2 functional skills apprenticeships, all key things to the apprenticeship programme. And then we published version 7. So we don't publish them as separate guidance documents, we update what's already there. So version 7 clarified ongoing arrangements for apprenticeship certificates. So I just wanted to give you a bit of a flavour of all of the flexibilities we've put in place to enable apprenticeships to continue. And version 8 was recently published, and there's a link on that slide. So you have all of the up-to-date information in one place regarding the apprenticeship programme as it is today, responding to CV-19. We are also going to be learning from our response, what's worked well and what we could continue to have in place to strengthen the programme in the future, because we do know some of the flexibilities that have been introduced have really strengthened the outcomes of the programme. And that's something we'll be looking at over the next few months also. So the first thing I wanted to cover with you is our funding policy, which I have included a link on, and it brings together everything that's in place for the recovery and the programme moving forward with our incentives into a funding policy that's going to cover the next year. So I'm going to cover the flexibilities in a little bit more detail, but just to highlight a few things that's in this funding policy. We have increased the number of reservations a non-levy employer can make for funding on our service from 3 to 10. So this involves a non-levy employer accessing the service and reserving funding to start an apprenticeship. So a non-levy employer can now recruit up to 10 new apprentices and attract incentives for these. If you're a levy paying organisation, there's no limit on the number of apprenticeship incentives you can attract. So the incentives I will cover in a little bit more detail in a moment. However, we do enable additional non-levy incentives to be attracted by a non-levy employer receiving a levy transfer from a levy organisation. So this is where a non-levy smaller employer would not need to go onto the service to reserve funding. They would need to go onto the service to receive a levy transfer to support the apprenticeship. So further information of that is all outlined in that funding policy. And also to drive quality in the programme, the policy also confirms that all new starts will be using employer developed standards from the 1st of August. So that is us moving over to an improved quality delivery standard. So back in July, the Chancellor announced his plan for jobs, which I've included in this slide, and young people were really at the heart of these announcements as those most affected by CV19. The skills offer is described as our route to economic recovery, and I'm going to talk through each of the initiatives, but just to point out, some are not DfE policy and some are still in development, and we have limited information on these. Kickstart being one of those, although I am aware that some announcements have been made today that you may want to go away and have a look at following this call. So the job retention bonus is a Treasury policy, and it's a £1,000 incentive to encourage employers to retain furloughed workers and pay them a minimum of £520 per month until at least the end of January. We hope that this bonus will have a positive impact on the number of apprentices that are made redundant, as the bonus does apply to them also. So apprenticeships. The apprenticeship incentives began on the 1st of August and will be available for 6 months. The aim is to encourage employers to create new opportunities within their organisation to support economic recovery. So it's a £2,000 incentive for those under 25 and a £1,500 incentive payment for those aged over 25. And it's in addition to our existing incentive for young people. Unlike our existing incentive, the £1,000 paid for 16 to 18-year-olds, the new incentives are paid directly to the employer, so they don't go via your provider, they're paid via the apprenticeship service. So a smaller employer not on the service would need to register to receive the incentives, and the apprenticeship recruitment must also be done via the service. The apprentice needs to be a new start with the employer, but can have already completed an apprenticeship at a lower level with a different employer. Also, if an employer recruits a redundant apprentice to enable them to complete their apprenticeship, so somebody whose employment's been ended through this period, they will have eligibility to the incentives if all of the eligibility criteria is met. So if a person has over 365 days of their apprenticeship left, the employer will receive 100% of the incentive. And if they have between 90 and 365 days left, they will receive the 50% of the incentive. We've not restricted how the incentive can be used. They can be used for anything: wage costs, mentoring costs, or to create another apprenticeship opportunity within your organisation. And payments will be made roughly 90 and 365 days after the apprenticeship start date, which will be confirmed via the provider's ILR submission, confirming that that apprenticeship has begun and has continued. So the system to claim incentives, it's paid via the service, but we have launched a separate system, which was launched yesterday, to enable an employer to claim these incentives. The Chancellor also announced he's considering levy flexibilities, but currently we have no further details regarding these. So again, I've included all of the information you would need to get involved in offering an apprenticeship. And if you've got further questions, our National Apprenticeship Service number is there, and also linked to our amazing apprenticeship site that goes into more detail regarding the programme.
I'll just add one more thing, Victoria.
Yes, thank you, Mike.
Also, Victoria mentioned that this new incentive that's been announced could be used in conjunction with the previous financial payment that was made to those younger apprentices. In addition to that, there may also be local initiatives
That can be stacked on top of this.
Tees Valley, just north of
Your area.
Andrew, we're having some problems with your sound, I'm afraid. It's
Okay.
Are you clear now? I think you might have had some interference. Sorry.
Okay.
Try again.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. We just had a lot of interference then. I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, I was just saying that some local initiatives may be available somewhere. Tees Valley, which is just north of your area, they've got a number of financial incentives available to employers that could be used on top of these coming from central government.
Thank you, Andrew, for that. Vicky, we're back to you. I think we might have lost Victoria there. Let me just double check.
Yes, sorry, I muted to avoid the issues and then struggled to get back off mute.
That's fine, just as long as we haven't lost you.
No, you haven't. I am still here.
Great.
Okay then. So we just want to talk up to you now around traineeships. So traineeships are our pre-apprenticeship programme, and it's what we say college or independent training provider based course with a work placement. So the government are keen that young people are able to access on-the-job experience to support their move into the labour market. And it was recognised that the traineeship programme, being that pre-apprenticeship programme, can provide young people with this opportunity. So there's an investment of 111 million in funding, which is going to help us to expand and reform the programme. Previously, if you had a level 3 qualification, you weren't eligible to complete a traineeship. We have now expanded eligibility for the programme to allow young people with a level 3 qualification to complete a traineeship, which enables, for example, a person with A-levels to take part in a substantial work placement and gain real-life on-the-job experience to strengthen their CV. Many trainees take around 6 months to develop the skills needed to complete their traineeship, but we have expanded the maximum duration to 1 year for those needing a little bit more support to enable everyone that completes a traineeship to be ready to enter the labour market and hopefully start an apprenticeship programme. To increase flexibility and enable support to be tailored to the trainees' needs, the work placement can now be a minimum of 70 hours and a maximum of 240 hours. An employer is willing to offer a work placement to a young person will receive a £1,000 incentive for the first 10 placements they host. Traineeships are the route into apprenticeships, as I've said, for young people, and we are working to use the funding to give them a more clearer sector progression. So traineeships were a work readiness programme, but they were very general, and we are looking to improve the sector progression so that people are more ready to take on their apprenticeship. And we're also expanding our traineeship provision to support this growth. Again, if you are willing to get involved and host placements, there's a lot more information available, and you can also contact our National Apprenticeship Service and they'll discuss with you how to get involved, and I've included all of the information you would need to do that. As I've said, Kickstart is a new DWP scheme, very much still in development, and I'm aware that there has been announcements today that you may want to go away and have a look at. We are working with DWP to ensure the programmes work well alongside each other. We're also working through progression from Kickstart to an apprenticeship and how this impacts employer incentives due, but we don't have any further information to share at this time regarding that. We do know Kickstart will begin in the autumn and it's a job creation scheme. The employer will be allocated an an individual and will receive 100% of the costs covering the national minimum wage for 20 hours per week and any additional costs for mentoring. And those placed with employers able to offer the opportunity will be universal credit claimants at risk of becoming long-term unemployed. Where there's no work-based opportunities, we will have a classroom-based offer for those 16 to 19-year-olds who are leaving education or have left education. And the aim of this offer is to prevent a person from becoming NEET, not in education, employment or training, due to a lack of other opportunities. So this is really for those individuals who are not able to get a Kickstart placement, apprenticeship or a traineeship. And I have included a link in the slides which covers all of the eligible courses, and the aim is to give young people improved vocational skills to strengthen the skills that they can offer employers. So these are level 2 and level 3 courses that will build on the skills they already have or enable them to develop new skills to be ready to enter the labour market. So as I said, the offers for 16 to 19-year-olds who have no other work-based opportunities available for them, and it will enable them to study in further education for a further year. We will be confirming that those enrolled had no options to enter the labour market. And if an individual leaves the classroom offer to start an apprenticeship, for example, this will be seen as a positive progression. So there'll be no penalty for the provider. So we won't be in a situation where providers are encouraging completion of the course first, because we want these young people to get into the labour market as quickly as possible. And we're going to be funding these courses between now and March 2022. To bring all of the programmes together and ensure young people are directed to the right programme for them, because what we don't want is somebody on a Kickstart programme that had real potential to do a level 3 apprenticeship. There has been investment in the National Career Service to grow the service by 300 advisors, and the National Career Service are going to be working locally to ensure that the advice and direction they're giving young people meet the local labour market needs. On the 1st of August, we also launched our Support for Redundant Apprenticeship service. So in addition to offering advice and support, we are keen to be able to signpost apprenticeships to suitable vacancies to enable them to complete their apprenticeship. And I mentioned earlier that if an employer is able to support a redundant apprentice to complete their apprenticeship, then the incentives would apply. Employers willing to hire apprenticeships made redundant are able to share their vacancies with us to enable us to signpost apprentices to these vacancies. And I have included a link on this slide if you're able to do that. There is a lot happening in the skills space at the moment, so I just wanted to finish by mentioning T-levels, which are being launched as we speak. So this has been in plan for the last 5 years. So yes, it's very difficult timing at the moment, given everything else that's happening. But the Minister was clear that we needed to move forward with the rollout of T-levels to be able to provide young people with this first-class technical education offer. T-levels are the equivalent to 3 A-levels, and it's a classroom-based learning opportunity with on-the-job experience. They're the reverse of an apprenticeship, so you spend 80% in the classroom and 20% on the job. This year sees the rollout of our digital construction and education T-levels, and I've included on the screen everywhere where we're going to be having a T-level and the rollout of those. At the heart of a T-level is the 20% on the job or 315-hour industry placement. And this is an employer's opportunity to offer an up-and-coming individual the opportunity to develop their skills and potentially find your next apprenticeship star. The progression following a T-level, it's a level 3 qualification. So individuals with a T-level will either start on a higher apprenticeship, have it off university route, so they do a CRAS U, CRAS points, or be able to enter skilled work. I didn't want to give you too much information on T-levels because I'm aware of everything I've already covered, but if you do want to get involved or find out more about T-levels and industry placements, then I have included all of the information on screen for you. Sarah, that's the end of the presentation. If we want to go over to questions or comments, I'll stop sharing so I can see everything that's on screen.
That's great, Victoria. Thank you very much. We've had lots and lots of questions coming in during your presentation, so I will put them to yourself and Andrew if that's all right at the moment.
Of course, yes.
So we had the first question was, can you explain the difference between a non-levy and levy paying employer? And I know Bev, who's our apprentice lead at the LEP, wrote something in there so about to do with the turnover. So would you be able to explain in further detail, Victoria?
Yeah, so the levy, the apprenticeship levy, is collected by HMRC on our behalf, and it's collected from employers with a turnover of, I want to say 1 million or more. Andrew, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I can give a bit more information.
I think it was 3, was it?
0.5% of a staff payroll of 3 million.
3, thank you.
Yeah.
And that's collected to fund the apprenticeship service. So if you're a levy paying organisation, that pot of money is put to one side to fund all of your apprenticeship activity within the apprenticeship service. So a lot of employers see that as their staff development funding, but they can also transfer that levy out to a smaller employer, and that will enable the smaller employer to avoid the 5% co-investment cost for an apprenticeship. So without a transfer, a smaller employer who doesn't pay the levy would be asked to contribute 5% to the apprenticeship training, and the government would pay the other 95% of that training cost. But a lot of larger employers are really keen to support their local communities or their supply chains, and are willing to levy transfer to reduce that cost for smaller employers.
Also, previously, can you hear me okay, Sarah?
Yeah,
Give me a
fine,
thumbs up.
Andrew. Yeah.
Previously, the way apprenticeships were funded was slightly different between those two parties. The larger levy paying employers would have had access to a digital web service, so a web platform where they could manage the funds that they'd been paying and select the apprenticeships that they wanted to fund. And then as of January this year, we've been inviting those smaller employers who don't pay the levy to use the same functionality of the web service, but the funding comes from a slightly different place.
Great.
So everyone now uses the apprenticeship service.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. Just to next question. I've just recruited a new apprentice last week, and she's going to start in late September, and they are a levy paying employer. Will they be eligible for the funding?
As long as the eligibility criteria is met, as in they weren't previously employed by the company, then yes, the incentives went live on the 1st of August.
Right.
So it would be, you would be required to obviously have them signed up with the ILR and have that confirmed and be able to claim that funding via the link that was in the slides.
Okay, and you'll be sending me the slides, and everyone that's attended today will get a copy of those slides with all the links on. All right, next question. Where can I find more information on the Kickstart programme today? Is there any links that you suggest that we direct people towards, Victoria?
I understand that everything went live just before I came on the call. So as I said, it is a DWP programme. Our work is to align the programmes together, and the Prime Minister is very keen that it's one skills offer. So we are working collaboratively, but I don't have a link. Happy to go in, have a little look around.
After the call, I'll be able to find the link, and if I pass it on to you, Sarah, and then you can share it with the other materials.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's great. So afterwards, I'll send everything out. When do you think that you will have the progression between the programs? The investments are valuable, but we need to know how they can help young people get onto career ladders.
The timeframes, I mean, in terms of eligibility, it would be whether the Kickstarter is classed as employed with the company or not, because that is one of our eligibility criteria. So it's for new starts. The incentives are for new starts. They're not for existing employees. At the moment, the Kickstart program's due to launch in November, and our incentives end in January. So time frame wise, we wouldn't be able to. What we need to clarify is if you want to take somebody off a Kickstart program to make them your apprentice, so you quickly acknowledge the fact that this is somebody you want to keep within your organisation. So that is something we're working through at the moment, and I will raise it again and let people know in our policy team that that's something everyone is keen to understand.
Great, thank you. Another question here: how is someone judged or classed as being at risk of being long-term unemployed?
I think that would be a one DWP would be better to answer. My understanding is it's if they've been claiming universal credit for 6 months or more. Andrew, is that what you have taken from this programme?
That was the original way of defining someone as long-term unemployed. But I'm hearing lots of conversations about how we need to be flexible given the current circumstances, because if you've got someone who's been furloughed and they've been not in their workplace for 6 months, and then you have to be claiming unemployment benefit for a further 6 months, you could have somebody who's been away from the workplace for 12 months. But I think, as you've said, Victoria, we're expecting further clarification to come from DWP on that one.
Okay, thank you. Had another question here. Will employers be able to interview young people for the Kickstart scheme to get a good match with their organisation, or are they just going to be allocated a young person without having the choice? There was a couple of people asking that same question, actually.
My understanding is that's the big difference between apprenticeships, traineeships and Kickstart. It's a referral process from DWP. So I think my understanding is the employer would say to DWP, I've got 5 opportunities, and they would be allocated 5 individuals who are at risk of becoming long-term unemployed. That may be clarified in the announcements today, but that was the last information that was shared with us.
Okay, thank you. I can understand further details to be confirmed, re the Kickstart scheme, but can Victoria or Andrew shed any light on how they think the referral process will work, i.e. will employers advertise the roles openly or just to the job centre?
Possibly just covered in my answer there, that I think it's going to be a case of letting them know what opportunities is in their organisation, and working with DWP to have those individuals allocated was, as I said, what was being discussed as the policy was being developed.
Right. Someone else has asked, after reading about Kickstart from the information released today, I'm keen to find out if this can be accessed by smaller businesses who would be looking to create 1 or 2 roles rather than 30. It says it would be through an organisation, but I couldn't find out any more information.
I would need to signpost that question to DWP. Yeah.
Okay. I think I had one more question actually that came through on my email. Oh, it's someone else coming to say, it seems I would not be able to hire because I'm in recruitment. Is that right? Is it sector specific?
No.
I'm not aware of any restrictions. It covers all sectors.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if anyone wants to come back to me with a bit more information as to why they may not meet that eligibility. Yeah.
Yes, so David, who asked that, if you'd like to kind of email me directly or message directly, and we can get you some more information on that. I've had another question that's come through to my email. We're a small business and about to take on a new manager who's been made redundant. Is there any funding for that level of employee?
They would need to be starting an apprenticeship with the organisation.
Yeah.
So there are many levels of apprenticeships available. So it may be worth looking at they find an apprenticeship and have a look to see if anything would be suitable to support that transition for that person.
Yeah, because an apprentice can be in any level of role, can't it?
Yes.
Yeah, we've got level 5, level 6 standards, which are the equivalent at degree level. So yeah, well worth a look at what's out there.
Okay, I hear for the Kickstart programme is only open to employers capable of taking 30 placements. Is this correct?
Possibly, I would need to look at the guidance on that one. So I think anything Kickstart, we can only surmise and kind of give generalised information. Any specific questions we would need to take to DWP.
Yeah. Thanks. Well, Bev and Tracy have just put the link to the Kickstart guidance. It's in the Q&A box there, gov.uk/guidance, a bit more about the Kickstart scheme. So hopefully that answers some of the questions. We'll refer that on.
I think Lucy Fernandez had a question in the chat that I'm not sure we've covered.
Yeah, there's a couple more I haven't managed to get to yet, Andrew. So if you want to do that one, please feel free.
So Lucy asked, would traineeships need to lead to guaranteed employment? And no, they wouldn't. They need to lead to a guaranteed interview, but not necessarily guaranteed employment.
Okay. There's a few more coming again about can DWP provide locality information about the numbers of young people receiving universal credit at a very local level? So local employer engagement support can be focused on who and how to engage people within their area to take up the Kickstart opportunities. Another question, how do DWP plan to work with the LEP and partners? I don't know if anyone can answer any part of that.
Bev, I think it may be an opportunity to maybe feed all these questions into Liz, the DWP link, just so she can have the opportunity to answer them fully.
Yeah, so I'm going to pass all these questions. I'm going to copy and paste them from the chat. Bev Trees is our apprenticeship lead within the skills of the LEP. So what we can do is we can get all these questions moving forward and answer them. So I'm going to keep a note of who's asked them. You've got the links to, if you've got our emails, bev.trees@businessinspiredgrowth.com or myself, sarah.thomas@businessinspiredgrowth.com. I'll put that in the chat box. Just a few more questions to add now. We are non-levy employers and recruiting an apprentice in early August who will start their apprenticeship on the 7th. Are we eligible for incentives given that they didn't recruit through the service?
My understanding is the recruitment needed to take place through the apprenticeship service, but I'm happy to go away and clarify if we have any workarounds around that. Andrew, are you aware of anything?
I'm pretty confident that he needed to recruit through the service. Recruitment throughout August would have been eligible once the system went live as of, it was yesterday, but it had to be done through the service.
Bev, I've unmuted you. Oh, go on.
Hi everybody, I'm Bev from the LEP. Unfortunately, the DWP are not able to use Zoom to attend this call today. She was keen, and so it's just a bit unfortunate with the announcements. She is really keen to receive your inquiries that are coming through. So I really would encourage you just to email me direct any queries in relation to the DWP, and she will to Kickstart, and she will come back to you. In relation to how will the LEP work with the DWP, we're organising, we're just in the process of setting up some meetings with local authorities who will then pass further information on to businesses through their links. We'll also be sending out information through the LEP intermediary email. If you don't receive that, again, please email me and I'll get you added on to the newsletter that goes out from the LEP. So it's unfortunate, it's launched today. It's been delayed, that's why we thought we'd have a bit more updates on there. But I am very keen to filter anything through and get answers directly back to you. Thanks, Victoria.
Thanks. Sarah, do we have any further questions?
Yeah, can we have the contact for the DWP? Bev, was that, I don't know if Bev's unmuted now, but I think it was a lady called Liz. So what I'll do is after this webinar, I'm going to assemble a list of all of the information that people are what they're asking for, including the DWP's contacts and the Kickstart links, and then they'll be emailed out to all our attendees. So Ruth, who's asked that question, I can get you the contact for the DWP. Can I be including anything about Kickstart? Someone's been asking. Let me just check the chat box. Victoria, Andrew, if you see anything else popping up.
I haven't seen anything, no.
Phil has asked a question here in the chat. He was asking about sales and marketing to help grow the business. Would traineeships need to lead to guaranteed employment? That was the one that Lucy asked. And Bev's answered with the more information about the Kickstart training. Yeah, Bev's going to get back to anyone. Any Kickstart queries, please email myself or bev.trees. Someone's written youth unemployment stats are in the NOMIN site, if that's helpful. NOMIS, sorry. Can you put, yeah. Any more questions, please pop them in the Q&A. Someone's asked if can we share all the Q&As. I'll be doing that because that will be downloaded to Zoom, so that's no problem. You got anything else to add, Andrew or Victoria?
Yeah.
Not from me.
Just to close by saying we're always looking for innovation and ideas, and our ministers really want to support apprenticeship growth and make it the best programme it can be. So at the end of all of these conversations, I always ask if you've got any ideas to share with us to strengthen the programme, any flexibilities you think we need to be considering, then we're always open to that innovation, and that's why I've shared my contact details. Please feel free to get in touch. We want this programme to be the best programme it can be for employers, all of the programs, especially apprenticeships. So get in touch if there's anything you want to share with me.
That's great, thank you very much. I'm just trying to email now the contact for Liz. It's Liz Hutchinson at the DWP, so I've put that into the box there. I've got 3 more Q&A. I think that's all of the questions answered. Anyone's got anything else they want to add, and then we'll close in a moment.
Lucy's just asked another question in the Zoom webinar chat.
Great.
About supporting how our ESFA, that's us, supporting employers connect with local training providers. We wouldn't want to do anything in particular to connect an employer to a training provider because we need to remain impartial. But if employers are looking to take
Go for an apprenticeship, employ an apprentice, then you can go on the website, find an apprentice, find an apprenticeship training readers, and that will lead you to the local provision.
Sorry, Andrew, we're getting a lot of feedback.
Okay, can you hear better now?
Sorry, Andrew, we just sometimes get a lot of feedback, so we can't.
Right. Just saying that if you
That's
can't
better.
find an apprenticeship training, you'll be able to find an impartial directory of providers that deliver the types of training that you're looking for as an employer around your locality.
And also our National Contact Centre, if you get in touch with them, they can give you advice on who delivers what within your regions and talk you through all of the different offers available. So we do have that matching service.
Great, so that was Lucy's question that you answered, wasn't it?
Yes.
Great, thank you very much. Well, if we've got no more outstanding questions, we got so many questions there. I hope you were able to cover all of it. It seemed very comprehensive, Victoria and Andrew. Thank you ever so much with for the presentation today. I'm sure we'll have a lot more questions. So after this, all our attendees will get all of the links that they need. You can email myself, Sarah Thomas, at sarah.thomas@businessinspiredgrowth.com, or Bev, who's our apprenticeship lead. There's more webinars to come. I really appreciate Andrew and Victoria joining us today. Thanks very much. Oh, I've got one more question, it looks like. Oh, just someone saying thank you for today's session, very useful. So thanks for your expertise, Andrew, Victoria, much appreciated.
Thanks.